Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Odd online dating podcast. I'm your host, Craig Palmer, author of the Good, the Bad, and the Odd online dating book. I'm also a certified domestic violence counselor and anger management counselor. Also, let me introduce my co host, Rosalind Williams. Ros-
Hello.
Rosalind is also a counselor and author. She formerly hosted the Life Matters television program and has extensive experience working with individuals dealing with mental illness, substance abuse, trauma related issues. So I want to thank everyone for joining the show. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about how online dating has changed social and cultural norms and how has it changed the traditional dating norms. So I'll let you start, Rosalind. How do you think it's changed?
Well, in terms of changing social and cultural norms, when I think of um, that, I think of the way things used to be. I mean, you could go to your neighborhood grocery market and possibly meet someone. Your family member may introduce you to someone, and next thing you know,
Mm-hmm.
you two are dating. But the thing that's different now is that people don't talk to one another. um, it's changed because communication has changed. I don't
Right.
think people are as open as they used to be in terms of talking to each other openly. People hide behind a computer. So that's changed. I think people have become accustomed to the online practices, such as, um, posting pictures and commenting on pictures and communicating via text and, sending emails and just, hiding behind the computer as opposed to talking face to face. And I think that has caused people to be more comfortable in that way, as opposed to being more comfortable being face to face in communicating. So that so much has changed, but definitely that's changed.
Well, it's funny because I heard someone say online a long time ago, or maybe not that long ago, but she said something that was really interesting. She said online dating gives guys the confidence to shoot the shot that they ordinarily wouldn't have taken, right? So because if you're out and about and you see a woman that's very attractive, some guys are not going to approach her. They're going to be like intimidated. They're going to be like, nah, I have no shot.
Hmm.
But online dating, listen, you're going to shoot your shot online. You might see a woman that is gorgeous and is like, what do you have to lose? You know what I mean? So I think that kind of gives guys some confidence that they ordinarily wouldn't have. Me personally, I'm a big fan of online dating because I work from home. I don't have an opportunity to meet women the traditional way. Like I don't. Well, when I go to the supermarket, 9 times out of 10, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
There's nobody at the supermarket at 7 o'clock in the morning except the elderly, right? The average woman is not, walking the aisles in the supermarket at 7 o'clock in the morning. They're kind of like on their way to work or something like that. So
Hmm.
for a guy like myself, I'm a big advocate of online dating because it allows you to vet the person.
Hmm.
When you meet someone out in public, you know nothing about them, right? Like, you know, I'll give you an example. I met this woman out in public once, and, we were talking and stuff. We decided to meet for breakfast, and come to find out, she's a weed smoker. And, you know,
Okay.
And I'm that's a deal breaker for me. So
Wow.
I ended up like not interested. I think women that online, when they're weed smokers, they're pretty honest about it. Like they'll tell you they're 420 friendly, you
I didn't know
know.
what that ment for so long. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's 420 friendly?
Yeah,
Like,
and I had to find out. That's why I wrote a book because I wasn't certain what 420 friendly meant either. But it basically
mhm.
meant the person smokes weed, and or she doesn't mind the person smoking weed, which is fine.
Interesting.
Because listen, some people use it for medicinal purposes. Some people just smoke it because they enjoy it, right? So I totally get it. But for me, that's a no. I'm not dating someone who smokes weed. Right. And I could just tell you, being from New York, New York is the ideal place to meet people. If you want to meet a woman in the old days, New York was the spot because, listen, New York has so many clubs, right, and lounges. Like, if I wanted to meet someone, all I had to do was go to the Shadow. Shadow's a nightclub in New York. It's in Manhattan, and you go to the Shadow on a Saturday night, you're going to meet someone. You
Wow.
go to Bentley's on a Saturday night, you're going to meet someone. You go to Demerara's or you go to um, just a bunch of different clubs in New York, you're going to meet somebody,
Hmm.
right? Because New York is an ideal place to meet people. I don't know if that's the case in other cities,
Hmm.
right? Like Savannah I wouldn't call Savannah the most ideal place to meet someone,
Hmm.
right? Because there's only a handful of places to go to in terms of nightlife, and a lot of those places are for young people, right? Like there's this place in Savannah called Eclipse, right? And I met the DJ. He DJs there on during the week, right? But if you go there, all the people there are like in their 20s, early 30s. That's not in my realm. I'm looking for someone 40 and above. So that doesn't work for me.
But let me ask you, okay, so would you talk to someone if you went out to a club? Would you approach a woman?
Yeah. If I looked at it and I found myself attracted to her, yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid to approach women, but there are guys that are, right?
So do
Like
you approach women now? If you seen a woman out, you were at a supermarket or you were at the mall and you found her attractive, would you approach her?
I have done that, and like I said, it's 9 times out of 10 of like I saw this. I'll give you an example. Last summer, I saw this woman who was getting out of her car in the parking lot, right? And I happened to be coming out the store, and I saw her getting out of her car, in the parking lot. And when I saw her, I'm going to be honest with you, her body was to die for, right? So I was like, oh my God.
Mhm.
Right? So I instantly turned around and went back into the store. I was like, let me, talk to this woman and see. So I went inside the store and I said to her, she was walking around. She had like this dress on, form fitting dress on, tremendous body, right?
Mhm.
And so I go to her and I said, excuse me, you're not allowed to shop in this store, right? And she says, I'm not. I said, no. She says, why not? I said, because you're distracting all of the male shoppers, right? How's the store going to make money if you're distracting all the
But
male
you had
shoppers?
did you have to think about your come online? Did you rehearse it before you got out?
No, it just comes off the top of my head. Right? And she says, well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to distract you. I said, okay, just don't let it happen again. Right? I don't want to have to call security. Right? And so she's like, I'm just picking up a couple of things for my daughter. And I said, oh, okay. I was picking up a couple of things for my sons. Right? So we ended up walking out the store together. We're talking. And come to find out, she has like 5 kids. Right? And I'm
Mm.
like, you got 5 kids? I was like, I mean, if you looked at her body, you could not tell this woman had 5 kids. No way, no how. Right? So, once she said 5 kids, I was like, no, this is not going to work for me. But it's just so come to find out, she's she actually was starting a transportation company, and so she ended up driving my son to school a few
Hmm.
times. But she decided, not to take him because she said it was just too difficult with her other clients, what have you. But nevertheless, nice woman, very attractive, great body, smart, seemed nice and stuff like that. So for me, I don't have a problem approaching a woman if I
Hmm.
find her attractive. But I find that I almost kind of don't want to waste the time approaching a woman out in public because, once again, you don't know how many kids they have. You don't know if they smoke weed. You don't know if they have a boyfriend, and things like that. You almost kind of like feel like it's almost a waste of time. So there may be guys out there that look at it from the same perspective, like, yo, why am I wasting my time trying to approach someone when I can just go online and find someone who's better suited for
Yeah.
me?
And that's the sad reality of things, that people have resorted to just getting online and feeling as though that it's safer, or it's less of a hassle. And I mean, what did we have before we had cell phones? We had a telephone in the house that we had to connect to it's just
Hmm.
like, what did we have before we had computers? We had the card catalog if you wanted to look up information.
Hmm.
And so these things that we have that are new doesn't make it any better, because I think that it takes away from communicating and just being able to have a conversation with someone. And it may be just for networking purposes, it does not have to be for a hookup. It may be, I always talk about reciprocity. It may be one exchange for another. It doesn't mean that you have to hook up with this person that you've met. So I just think that it really takes away, and it's dumbing down society. Society as a whole the has lost the essence of communicating and what that means to people. We've lost the essence of the importance of knowing that we need each other. No person is an island. We need each other. People need people. And we need touch. The online dating is just not, I mean, not online dating, but just online is not enough. We need more of, you know, we need more from one another. And I think that's what we've been placed on earth for. But we've lost it. We've lost a lot of it. Online dating definitely has its purposes. And if you're living in this century, you know, and you're dating, I'm sure most people, if you're meeting people, most people are utilizing online dating. If they're not, they will eventually. I've had some people to tell me, hey, I never dated online until my coworker or my family member introduced me to online dating. And they said they weren't dating at all. I mean, they weren't dating people for years. I'm like, how do you go? You didn't date anyone? They said, no, I wasn't meeting anyone. And then someone introduced me to online dating. So yes, it has its place, but I think the sauce has been lost. People have just lost that, like what you said. You were at the store, you seen a woman that was very attractive, and you approached her. A lot of men don't do that now. So
Hmm.
kudos to you, because even where I'm at in Arizona, a lot of women complain about that. Men don't approach them, but you see them online. You see
Hmm.
these men online. I mean, I've seen people at my church that I've seen. I was like, wow, I didn't even know that person was single. I've seen them
Hmm.
online. and they're hiding in plain sight. They're
Mm-hmm.
not approaching women at the church. Um, and some of them have been in these singles groups, but they're not saying anything, and you
Right.
have no idea. So
You
yeah,
know, let me tell you a funny story. Right. One day, I was,
Arizona, Corey.
huh?
Corey said, "Where am I?" Arizona.
You know what? Yeah, she's not too far from you. California ain't too far from Arizona, I don't think.
Yeah.
Right. But I was online one time, right? And I saw this woman's picture, and I was thinking to myself, I know her from somewhere, right? And so I said to her, hello. And she says, hi. And she says to me, you don't remember me? Right.
Hmm.
And I said, I don't think so. I said, you look familiar. I said, um, have you ever been to Harlem? Have you grown up? Did you grow up in Harlem or something like that? Because she looked familiar. She said, yes, I was born and raised in Harlem. And
Hmm.
I said, oh, okay. I was born and raised in Harlem too. She says, you still don't know who I am. And I said, no, who are you? And she says, I was your neighbor. I lived across the hall from you.
Hmm.
And what's so funny is she was my neighbor, but her sister and I was in fifth grade together,
Hmm.
right? But she's younger than I am. She's like maybe, I'm gonna say maybe 5 years younger. So when I saw her face, I said I recognized her. I knew her from somewhere, but because when you're you know 13 and the person's sister is like 8, you don't really look at the but I recognized her face. And it's just so funny. She was online and she's like, yeah, I lived across the hall from you. And I was like, oh, you know what? Then when she told me, I said, oh, you were so and so sister. She's like, yeah. I said, oh, okay. So you'd be surprised how you meet. I saw two people that was on my teams when I worked at Verizon. Like they're online trying to find love,
Hmm.
So that's what's changed. Like I
And
said,
you see them
people.
every day. You have no idea.
Right, exactly. Like, listen, people are out there trying to find a partner. And you know what? It's now become socially acceptable to meet someone online.
Yes.
There was a
Now
time it was taboo. Like, you
it was
wouldn't tell
taboo
nobody that you
that
met someone online.
you
But,
got it.
you will now. You
Hmm.
will tell someone, like, yo, I met them online. It's no big deal. But
Hmm.
there was a time you'd be like, uh, like if you ever watch House Hunters on the weekend, right? I watch
Hmm.
House Hunters on the weekend, and on the weekend, they have couples, and I can tell you half of the couples have met online, and they look. I hate to say they look weird. Like you almost kind of wonder how did they get together because they just don't seem like a match,
Hmm.
right?
But
But
it's interesting. Calvin, we got to read his comment. It's interesting because he's saying similar to what you said earlier. He's like, I guess it gets right. It summarizes who this person is. Dating online is like reading the back of a book, and so that's what makes it so easy for some people. They're like, listen, I know what this person's about. Next, you know. They smoke weed. They didn't graduate from school. They have a high school education. I mean, they didn't graduate from college. They have a high school education, and
like crib notes, they like
they're
the crib
yeah,
notes.
yes, absolutely, so funny. But that's quite interesting to me. But yeah, but the thing is that it really doesn't give the person a chance to really they're not really able to show their personality by doing so. It's
Hmm.
like you only read about that person, but you don't really hear that person from their heart, who they are,
Hmm.
the inflections, how they laugh. It's just like No, I don't think so. Next. And I've done that before. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of it.
I think that for for guys, we have it a little easier because generally, like you said, you the expectation from women is that they expect the guy to approach them. It's
Mhm.
rare. Like, although, let me just change. It also has to do with regionally, because like in New York, the women in New York, they're bold. Like they'll approach you in New York. They don't do that here in the South. Like in the South, if a guy looks at a woman in the South, and let's just say he's attracted to her, you can kind of tell the guy is eyeballing you a little bit. The woman is not coming up to him saying, "Hey, how you doing?" In New York, they will approach you. In New York, they say, "You like something? You like what you see?" Like they'll say something to you to kind of give you a high sign. That's not the case in the South. At least that's been my experience. In the
Mhm.
South, they're like they suffer from what I call the Southern Belle mentality,
Mhm.
which is, they expect the guy to do all the effort, the heavy lifting. They
Mhm.
expect them to approach them. There was this one woman I was talking to, attractive woman, but never called me. And matter of fact, I could think of three instances where the woman never called me. Like they expected me to call them and stuff like that, and very rare, like never called. And every time we spoke, we had good conversation. And they were, really nice women, and they might have had an opportunity, but they expected me to do all the heavy lifting. No, that ain't happening. If you don't know how to pick up the phone and your hand broke, you don't know how to dial a number, guess what? I ain't the one for you.
I okay, I want to comment on that. Let's see if we can get this we have another screen on here. And for people that are trying to log in, I think there's another login that we need for them because they're being added on to our screen.
Yeah,
Let's see if we can get that one off.
let me see.
But what I wanted to say that definitely is the Southern Belle mentality. For and I'm going to speak for a lot of African American women. I'm not saying in totality, but a lot of them have been taught, to allow the man to be a man and the man to approach you, and that you should not be the aggressor. And so, a lot of women, I've been told, because they believe that, they have missed out. And some men have said this is why a lot of women that are non black women are getting more of the men because they know how to, they're being more of the aggressor, while these African American women or women of minority women are sitting over and waiting in the corner, and waiting for the man to approach them. Um, and I can say that I used to be that type of woman, thinking that, okay, the man should do, like you mentioned, the heavy lifting. But I think with online dating, for me, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
tell you, it has helped me to become a little bit more bold. It
Mm-hmm.
has emboldened me to be able to speak up and speak out, and approach, because there are some online platforms, um, most of them, where the women, the you can approach the man and the man can approach you.
Right.
And so
Excuse me.
I have been able to approach the man and say, "Hey, how are you? How are you doing? How was your day?" And it's not just, and some people will say on their profile, "Don't just ask me how am I doing. Read my profile and ask me a question."
Mm-hmm.
And so that has really allowed me to come out of my comfort zone and not just say, "How are you
Mm-hmm.
doing?" but make me want to read that profile and ask them another question. So that's even, in terms of seeing someone out, I may give a smile or I might say, "Hey, that's a nice hat. Oh, you look nice in that." It's just it's a compliment. So I can definitely say that I've become a little bit more bold, um, in terms of, and not aggressive, not too assertive, but just being able to show a side of my personality because I love people. So I'm not afraid to speak or talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
As before, I think it was just about, oh, I can't say anything because that man may think I like him. This is one thing that someone mentioned, and I can't remember, it was like a dating guru. They're like, everybody you see, you can surely say something nice about them. You don't have to want to be with them, but you can give them a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
Get used to giving compliments a week, for a whole week. Do nothing but give compliments to people that you see. And that will help you to be able to learn to approach people and be more comfortable in approaching them because you can find something good about each person that you see, you know. And so that really helps, people, I think, to come out of their shell, but also in terms of, you know, um, social and cultural norms, it's normal for us to be able that we should be able to communicate with one another, um and give compliments, or approach the person that's standing, or say something to the person that's standing beside you. That's, I mean, that's
Well,
culturally
I'm gonna tell you
normal.
something. I shouldn't tell you this, but I am gonna tell you this, right?
Okay.
I don't believe you should give women a ton of compliments,
Hmm.
right? And the reason why is because I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it because that's how I roll. The more attractive a woman is, the this has just been my understanding and what I've seen. The more attractive a woman is, the less you want to compliment her. She's accustomed to getting compliments. That ain't impressive to her. So you almost have to approach a woman who's attractive from a more cerebral approach. Because to tell them she's attractive, she knows that. She got guys hollering at her all day, every day. So if you say to her, hey, you're so fine and stuff like that, that ain't impressing her. She knows she fine. So
Hmm.
you've got to kind of approach her from a different perspective. You got to kind of say to her the other things that appeal to you regarding her. Because if you just focus in on looks, the attractive women are going to be like, they're not impressed with that. I
Yeah.
mean, that,
And heard that all before.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
What you
that's
got?
why
What else you
I
got?
don't give women a ton of
Yeah.
compliments unless
Hmm.
once I get to know them, then maybe, I'll say, hey, you're
Hmm.
attractive, or,
Hmm.
I'll point out a feature of hers that stands out. But early on, you've got to be kind of careful about how you compliment women. And this is going to the brothers. Be careful how you compliment these women because, listen, they'll get a big head. You know what I mean? You create a monster. So you've got to kind of be careful in what you say.
Hmm.
I mean, women, listen, guys, we don't mind a woman complimenting us because, I don't think guys get a ton of compliments per se. Women are the ones that kind of get more compliments because, especially if you have a nice shape, you have a pretty face, or let's say you have a nice smile, or
Hmm.
pretty eyes, or long hair, or just things like that. Women are accustomed to getting complimented.
Hmm.
Guys, I don't think guys get a ton of compliments.
I
I
think
think,
so. I think guys get compliments too.
not the same way women do. I mean, I think, for me, the most compliments I get is probably just about my height, just because I'm tall. But other than that, I mean, a woman is not coming up to me saying, "Man, you got a nice ass." You know what I mean? Or they're not coming up to me saying, um, "You have nice lips." You know what I mean? Like they're not saying stuff like that.
Hmm.
Women are the ones that get compliments like that. Women don't give guys compliments like that. The most they say is, "Oh, you dress nicely," or "You're tall, you're handsome." like that's the basically the what you get. Right? Now women get others, like they get like, you dress nicely, you have great eyes, you have beautiful brown eyes and all this kind of stuff. Like, we don't get that stuff. you know?
I think it just depends. I think men get good compliment. I think men get compliments too. But I do understand what you're saying as far as a woman. One thing that it just bothers it. I don't want to say it bothers me, but it's like it's okay for a man to say, "Oh, you're a beautiful woman, you're pretty, or or you're so sexy." But after a while, it's like, come on now, can we give me something else with some substance? Is it anything unique about me or my personality that you can say? And that's something that women look for. When you are an attractive woman, you look for the man who can give you a compliment that who really has paid attention to you. And
Hmm.
that's the thing. That impresses me. I can tell you've really paid attention to me. You've done your homework. You're not just throwing out a compliment, because if you're an attractive woman, you hear it a lot. Not to say that you don't want to hear it, not to say that it doesn't carry weight, but it's like we still want you to say something else about us that you've noticed.
Well, I mean, I think, it's important that you tell a woman you appreciate her, especially, and Calvin said something that's interesting, right? Which is, don't start something that you're not going to keep up, right? And
Hmm,
like,
I agree.
and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of flowers, right? And now I know there's some women, especially older or more mature women, love a guy to bring flowers. I think that's a
Me.
complete waste of money, right?
What?
And I'm going to tell you why. Flowers die, right? And I'm going to buy flowers for them to die in in a week, right? And so I don't believe in bringing flowers in the initial meet. Now, if we're involved, I will buy a woman flowers. Right? When I was married, I bought my wife flowers. I sent flowers to her job and stuff. And not because I'm a big fan of flowers, it was just to kind of show how I appreciate her and I was thinking about her. Right? But initially, if I'm meeting someone online from the beginning, I'm not sending them flowers. Right? I have to get to know the person. I have to be involved with the person before they get flowers. There are guys that be bringing flowers for the first meet. The first time they meet the woman, they bringing
I
her
don't think
flowers.
anything's wrong with that. I've had that happen
I'm not doing
before.
that. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I let me say this to you. That is one of the ways that I know that I'm going to have a second date with a guy. And it's because those are the men that that are chivalrous, to me. And not all. I'm not saying if you don't bring flowers, you're not chivalrous. That's not what I'm saying. It's that I love a man, and whether they die tomorrow, it's the thought. It's you acknowledging that this woman is a lady and you appreciate her and you are interested in showing her that she's special. I think it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's not every and I'm not to say that people can't get
Hmm.
beyond um you know the first base if they don't bring flowers, but I'm saying that is definitely um you definitely score brownie points with that, especially if you've spoken to someone a couple of times before dating and you've expressed to them that you really like flowers and they show up with flowers. That tells me, okay, this person they thought about me, they even thought about what matters to me, and they took the time to make it happen. So I love that. I don't think anything's wrong with that.
Yeah, like I said, to each his own. I'm a firm believer in doing meet and greets. There's some women out there that don't. Um, my hold on, I gotta put this. My brother says he always brings flowers.
Oh,
Um,
wonderful, Tor.
and that's fine. I'm a firm believer in um, meet and greets. I
Mhm,
think that we should have an initial meeting and let's
mhm,
see if we have some chemistry before you start investing flowers, right? And before you start investing a major amount of time, listen, sit down and have a conversation, right?
mhm,
There was this woman that reached out to me once. Well, let me backtrack. There was two women, so I'm going to mention both of them. The first woman, she reached out to me late at night. It was a Thursday night, and so she's like, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" I was like, "Oh, tomorrow I'm going to a free concert here in Savannah." And she's like, "Oh, let's meet there." Now, I didn't have a conversation with her. We
mhm.
just kind of said we're going to meet at the free concert, and it was disastrous, right? Uh,
Oh
our
my
pers-
goodness.
our personalities didn't mesh. She
Mm,
was kind of these one of these women that was a complainer,
mhm.
right? Like it was an outdoor concert, like on grass, and she says, "My feet are getting dirty." I'm like, "It's an outdoor concert. I mean, what did you think was gonna happen? You wore sandals, right?" And then she says, and they had like food trucks, and she says, "These food trucks are so unsanitary." And she said it just like that.
Hmm.
So unsanitary. And I was like, they're food trucks. Which I mean, then don't buy from them if you think they're unsanitary. Right? And she was just like had this way she spoke. It was like, I couldn't wait to get away from her. Right? So I'm just saying, like, when it comes to like have a conversation with someone face to face, like before you decide to go out to dinner, before you decide to go to a concert, or go someplace with them, have a conversation, see what they're about, to make certain that you kind of vibe. And like I said before, you know what, do video chats, with folks, so that way if you do a video chat. Okay, so yeah, you know what, let me do this real quick, hold on. Da, 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 da. Give me a second because I just want to. All right. So I'm going to send you a link, and this link will allow your guests to come on. Well, you know what? I can't even do it right now. So sorry. But in the future, I'll give you the link so people can come on as an audience member and not guest, because I see what you mean. Right. But anyway, you know, do video chats, have a conversation with someone and make certain that you're vibing before you decide to meet the person face to face.
Mhm.
Because I think it's just more beneficial in the
Oh, of
long run.
course. I agree with that, because I've met people that we've had conversations over the phone, and I'm like, wow, I dodged a bullet. I'm so glad that I didn't meet them initially without talking to them.
Right.
So that's happened, I mean, many times. I mean, this thing, sometimes people make it complicated, but you are able to filter out people, especially when you know what you want and you got that in front of you. You know exactly what you're looking for. And if this person doesn't meet those things that are on your list of, what you want, then you're able to filter through them. And I don't mean to sound like you're filtering through pieces of paper, but basically, I think maybe Kelvin said that in the comments that, it's like reading a back of a book. But if you talk to, when you talk to someone on the phone, and they don't have the certain things that you're looking for, you're interested in, you may not even like their tone. I mean, I've talked to guys, I'm like, oh my goodness, I cannot see myself being with this person, talking to them forever. They can't be my forever. I mean, I don't even like the tone of their voice.
Hmm.
That means a lot to me. It really does. The tone, the inflection, enunciation, pronouncing. Can you, I mean, all, can you communicate? That means a lot to me. So, and then, sometimes you get on the phone and it's like this dead space, this dead air. And it's like the person's not talking. They don't even know. And one thing that I love, a man that can make me laugh, a man that's humorous. I enjoy that. For somebody that's just dead and there's nothing interesting about them. No, that's a no. We're probably not going to meet up.
I think that I have to admit, there's this woman that calls me every blue moon. I'm not going to mention her name, right? But I could tell you she's boring. Right? And so I don't call her. I mean, honestly, every now and then she'll shoot me a text. Hey, how you doing? I'm fine. And that we've spoken, I think maybe 3 or 4 times, and
Hmm.
she's just really boring. Like she has nothing going on, nothing, right? She has no interest. She, aspirations. She ain't doing nothing on the side. That's the other thing too. Like you've got to be, if you're not being successful out there in online dating, like you said, you might have to look at yourself. Would
Hmm.
you date yourself? Or do you bring something to the table? Like I can kind of tell you, like for me, for someone that I really vibe with, they have to probably be someone who's an avid movie watcher,
Hmm.
right? Because I love watching movies. I love dissecting films. You know what I mean? Like I love to like analyze movies. And that the person that I'm going to be with ultimately long term probably is going to be someone like that
Hmm.
likes movies, because on a weekend, if we're not out and about or we're not traveling or whatever, there's nothing night, better than, cozying up at home, putting
Hmm.
on a movie, if you want to pop popcorn or whatever, and, dissecting that film and talking about it and laughing about it or what have you. And so, you have to have someone that's interesting, and I'm sorry, there's some women out there that are just really not that interesting, even though
Yeah.
they think they are. You know what I mean? Like, there was this one woman I was talking to, and I mean, she's so pretty. You kind of work with them. You're trying to work with them because you're like, man, she fine. You know what I mean? But and I talk for a living, so I could kind of generate a conversation
Hmm.
with anyone. But there comes a time that you don't want to be pulling teeth.
You
You
got
know
to
what I
hit the
mean?
ball back. Come on now. Give
Right.
me
That's what I'm
the ball.
saying. Like you've got to be,
Hit it. Hit it.
ask questions. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it can't be one sided. And it's like, well, and listen, and even in my book, and that's one of the things that I wrote in my book. I put a lot of questions in my book so
Hmm.
that way it stimulates conversation, but it also allows the person to get an understanding of the person,
Hmm.
right? Like a question in the book would be like, in your previous relationship, what did you learn from your previous relationship that you learned that would make you a better candidate this time around,
Hmm.
right? Because you want the person to be thinking. You want them to think like, did they learn something from their previous relationship? Did they improve? You know what I mean? Like, and you can ask questions, and some women are just not interesting. I'm sorry, they're not.
Hmm.
And so, you've got to kind of say to yourself, that's not a good match. Maybe they need someone that's not a talker, someone that's
Hmm.
not going to be, analyzing things. Because I
Hmm.
had some women say, oh, you're so opinionated about movies. Well, that's what I do. I like to watch movies. I like to analyze them. You know what I mean? I like to see, like, I know bad acting when I see it. So I'm going to mention it. This is bad. Like, there's this show. on Tubi, and I'm
Mhm.
going to mention it because it's so entertaining. The acting ain't great, right? I'm going to say the acting ain't great, but for the brothers, if you want to watch something and laugh, right, really laugh, it's called My Lesbian Homie. It is hilarious. So I would tell any guy, you want to laugh, watch My Lesbian Homie. It's hilarious.
Mhm. I remember you talking about that. It's interesting that you mentioned that because um, there are a couple of people that I watch on Facebook. They come up often on my timeline. They're always somewhere, they're traveling or, getting a group of friends together. They're snapping pictures, or they're coming up. A lot of them are coming up with their own excursions. And it could be somewhere that's local, or they may be doing something on their own. They may be out riding and they stop somewhere and they're showing you this local shop or place that they went to, or they may have taken up pickleball, or they're ice skating, and they're just making it happen. But they're doing different things, and it's like that person's interesting. They really live an interesting lifestyle. Some people are just naturally like that, and so um, some people think that they are living this interesting lifestyle, but you look and it's like that's really not interesting. They're pretty boring. But it really takes that person with that type of personality that's outgoing, that can hit the ball back, and give you something different and unique. Recently, that's something that I decided to do, pickleball. I bought a
Mm-hmm.
pickleball set,
Mm-hmm.
and I said that's something that I'm going to do with friends. And a cousin of mine, she told me, she said, "Listen, wherever I go, I got my paddle with me." She said, "And I'm finding a place where I could play pickleball." So that's pretty interesting to me. I take Pilates. I love Pilates. I just bought an electric bike. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be planning my own little excursions and things that I want to do, not with someone per se. It could be by myself, but I think when you lead a lifestyle that you can have fun just by yourself, and whoever comes alongside of you just adds on to it, that makes life interesting. And that person's like, okay, that person is really interesting. They have their vibe going all by
Mm-hmm.
themselves. They don't need nobody they're inviting me to the party, but they are the party. They can be the party all by themselves. And that's how I feel. I like to have fun in whatever I do. So,
I
and
mean,
that makes a good companion.
I'll admit, I was talking to this woman online once, and listen, no disrespect to you, Rosalind. I'm sure pickleball is fun. I had to tell the woman because she said, "Oh, I go to pickleball, I think once a week or something like that." I told her, "I think it's dumb. I really do. I think pickleball is dumb. Isn't that like with a wiffle ball and
Yeah,
like
you think
paddles
it's
and stuff?
dumb?
It looks dumb to me."
Oh my
Right.
goodness, it's
But
so
that's
fun.
fine for people who want to play pickleball. That's fine.
Mhm.
I think it looks dumb. Right? And I mean, it's kind of like the professional hacky sack tournament. Like, I'm sorry, not hacky sack, cornhole. Right? I'm watching
Oh,
ESPN,
that's so
and then
goofy.
there's a professional cornhole tournament.
Yes, there is a cornhole
Cornhole.
tournament.
It looks dumb.
It
I
yeah,
mean, I get doing it in your backyard, but cornhole? No, no, no. It looks
tournament.
dumb.
I know. I thought that was the worst thing. I'm like, come on, who came up with a tournament? When I first heard that there's a cornhole tournament, I was just blown away. Now pickleball, I can understand. Pickleball is almost like tennis to me.
No, it's not. it's it's a freaking wiffle ball. you both are standing next to each other. I mean, you basically could kiss each other. You're so close, and you're hitting it over each. And it doesn't. The ball doesn't bounce. It's a wiffle ball. You got to keep it in the air. It looks. I'm sorry, it looks dumb, but to those people who do it,
It's
by all
fun.
means,
It's all about fun
listen, knock
and
yourselves out.
laughter.
So yeah, so
Oh,
we got a question for Calvin. She says, "Do you think there is a difference between people dating in the North versus people who date in the South?" Of course, the major difference is that people in the North, one, to me, are more aggressive. Oh, I'm talking about the women.
in the North are more aggressive or the South?
The North,
Oh, the North
North,
are more
no,
aggressive.
right,
Yes, and the South is more
yeah.
relaxed. Okay,
The
yeah.
the other thing too, and the things that we can do in the North, I think is a lot lengthier than what you can do in the South, right?
Hmm.
Because it's hot in the South. So one of the big things to do in the South is go to the beach, right? I like the South because of that. You can do more outdoorsy things, whereas in the North, it's cold. Like in New York. New York, there's a lot to do in New York. If you were trying to date someone in New York, yo, the world is your oyster because you can go to Central Park, you can go sightseeing, you can go to Statue of Liberty, you could go to the UN, you could go to Rockefeller Center, you can go to the Apollo Theater. Like there's so you can go to catch a play, right? Like there's so much to do in New York. Like it's so perfectly suited to date in the North. The South is there's no theaters here in Savannah. There's one, and they ain't got nothing going on there, right? There's I think maybe one comedy club in Savannah. In New York, there's like 10 comedy clubs. I love to go to a comedy club. So to me, there's more things to do in the North than there is in the South. You
Well,
got.
well,
Mhm.
let me say this. I think Kelvin is asking the difference between people dating. I think he's talking about people, not so much about what you can do, but I think it's almost like the type of people that you date.
Yeah.
So, people on the West Coast are totally different than the people on the East Coast. People out here on the West Coast are they're more open. Uh,
Hmm.
they're open with dating, but they're not so aggressive. You don't get a lot of people approaching you because everybody in the West Coast, especially California, thinks they're beautiful. So, they want the other person to be the heavyweight. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, they're going to do most of the, reaching out, contacting. They're not aggressive out here.
Right.
People on the East Coast are a little bit more aggressive to me, and I know he mentioned North and South, but I'm just base I'm basing it on being out here as opposed to the East Coast because I am from the East Coast and I have seen the difference. So I think depending on what region you're in,
Hmm.
I think that depends on how people how they are and how aggressive they are and how laid back they are and the type of personalities.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of women in
It's
the
different.
South, very late. Like one time I went on 4 dates with this one woman, right? And every time we went out, I kind of picked the date. It was almost kind of like being in coming to America, right? It's like, what do you want? What movie you want to go see? I want to see the movie you want to see, right? What restaurant you want to go to? I want to go to the restaurant you want to go to, right? And it's like, what do you want to do this weekend? I want to do what you want to do, right?
Are you
And
kidding me?
I'm dead serious, and I'm like, and I said to her, listen, I'm not gonna go on another date with you until you pick the date, until you decide what you want to do. And we've never gone on a date. One day she called me on a Saturday and she was like, "Hey, what are you up to?" And by the way, for those women that do WYD, right, which stands for "What are you doing?" I hate it, right? I hate WYD, just for the record, right? But And I also hate grand rising. When women say grand rising like
Oh,
wine, I
I
hate that.
know,
Right?
I
But
know.
that's, let's keep it a secret, but I hate
Grand, Grand Rising King. How are you, Queen? Oh, stop, please.
it. Right? So, yeah, so I said to her, I'm not gonna. I said she called me on a Saturday and she says, "Hey, what are you doing today?" I said, "Nothing." Right? And she's like, "Oh, okay." So I said to her, "Wouldn't today be a great day to go on the beach and have a picnic?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's a great idea." And then I said to her, "Why didn't you come up with it?" Right? And she's like, "Oh, I wasn't thinking about it." Exactly. So, women have to be creative, like, and most women are. In this particular instance, she wasn't, but I think most women are kind of creative. They don't mind planning dates, and I think they appreciate when a guy can plan a date. You know
Mhm,
what I mean? Like when he comes up with, "Hey, let's go here, let's do this." I think they appreciate it because they're so accustomed to doing it themselves.
mhm.
So the norms have changed a lot. I appreciate the change. I think that it's really behooved us folks that, and you know what also has changed it too? The pandemic.
Absolutely.
There was a time in recent history where they was telling people not to come within 6 feet of you.
Mhm.
There are things now that are airborne that you can, catch, whether it's TB or, you know, um, you know, um, the pandemic, and
Measles.
stuff.
Somebody recently got the
Yeah.
measles in this
So
year.
I think that's another reason why people are not approaching folks as well. Because I hear
Yeah.
women say, listen, back up off me. You know what I mean? Like they don't want a guy to be up all up on them because of some medical issues. You know what I mean? Like there are people that are still wearing masks in supermarkets, right? Like I go in the supermarket and I see somebody wearing a mask. I'm like, maybe they have something going on with them. You know what I mean?
Well, that's interesting that you brought up the pandemic. I think that has really changed the world. Um, I mean, of course, on the internet definitely changed the world, but the pandemic changed the world, and people became more and more. Um, they, they did not. They became more and more isolative. They were, people are they've isolated themselves so much so now that it's okay. It became the norm of, um, you know, just dating online. I think that's when online dating became the norm. It became more of people were, it wasn't so taboo. I think people were more open and accepting of online dating after the pandemic because that's how people began to date and that's how they people got online to communicate. So I think that did change, and I think it has done us such a disservice because now that's the only thing that most people rely on in terms of meeting people. And that's even in groups. It's not just dating, but it's even in groups. Um, there's so many online groups on Facebook and other social media platforms where you can meet people that may be like minded or you may have some interests, similar interests. And people have resorted to just, communicating online. But I think you've got it right. Definitely, the pandemic has changed us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever been involved with like a speed dating? You ever did speed dating?
No, I've wanted to,
Okay.
but I've never done it
Okay. So
before.
I did a speed dating event once, right? And I must admit it was very entertaining, right?
Hmm.
Because you only have 5 minutes, to have a conversation with someone, and then you got to move to the next table.
Mhm.
And you know, you talk 5 minutes to someone, and and then you move on, and then they come back to you later on, and you're like, once you have a more lengthier conversation, you realize like, oh, they're not bringing to the table what you're looking for. But I think they need more speed dating things like events like that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Where you can meet someone face to face and have a conversation with them. I would put it more like 10 minutes as
Mhm.
opposed to 5 minutes, but do it that way. And I think that would be successful. You know what I
Mm.
mean? As opposed to maybe just online.
Mhm.
So, maybe we'll
That's a
do a,
great idea. I like that.
maybe we'll do a speed dating event once. You know,
Online. That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I would
When
love
we get
that.
to 10,000 viewers, we're gonna do a speed dating event, or a
I
thousand,
like
a thousand
that.
viewers.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we
Hmm.
don't even have to wait for 10,000 members. That's a really good. I like that.
So once again, the hour went by very quickly. So I want to thank all the viewers for commenting and watching.
Yes,
And
thank you.
please, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch every Tuesday at 9 p.m., where we discuss online dating, and the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, and the odd
Yes, and bring
about
your questions.
yes, by all means.
Bring your questions. Introduce some topics and maybe something that you may be interested in us talking about. Please share it with us because we would love to hear it. You're out there just like we are.
Yeah,
So
looking for love. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 9.
yeah,
Take care. Good
thank
night.
you. Bye bye. Good night.